that I'm a British citizen, so I understand what it means to be a foreigner deprived of rights by the United States government for the 11 years, because you have some kind of protections that we foreigners don't have. But anyway, here we are today with the backdrop of the White House, which is very important. We've started at the Supreme Court, which is also significant, and we passed the Capitol on the way. And, 4 years ago, President Obama came into office and made an executive order promising to close Guantanamo within a year. That was very much the right and proper thing to do, and he failed to fulfill that promise. And he has been guilty of cowardice himself. He has run up against unprincipled and opportunistic opposition to these plans in the Congress. And the prisoners have encountered opposition from ideologically minded right-wing judges in the DC Circuit Court, who have prevented their release and have gutted habeas corpus of all meaning when it comes to their stories. They have also run up against the complete indifference of the Supreme Court, which refused to accept appeals from 7 of the men in June last year. And one of the men whose appeals they refused to consider was a man called Adnan Latif, a Yemeni man who died at Guantanamo in September, who died at Guantanamo possibly as many as 8 years, but certainly almost 6 years after he was told that he was not wanted in custody anymore, that he was cleared for release. He died at Guantanamo because he was a Yemeni. And ever since, on Christmas Day 2009, a Nigerian man tried to blow up a bomb in his underwear on a plane bound for the US, when it turned out that he was apparently recruited in Yemen, there has been an absolute ban on releasing any Yemenis from Guantanamo Bay. Yemenis are judged as guilt by nationality as the rationale for holding them. Even though 2/3 of the cleared men in Guantanamo, there are 86 cleared men, even though 2/3 of them are Yemenis, none of them are allowed to go home because of this. This is an absolutely disgusting situation. The one fact that particularly strikes me the most on this 11th anniversary, as I reflect on how all 3 branches of the United States government, the majority of the United States media, and sadly the majority of the American people have forgotten about the importance of Guantanamo and the plight of the men held there. The most significant fact to me on this day is that 86 men were cleared for release from Guantanamo 3 years ago by an interagency task force established by the President of sober, responsible career officials and lawyers from the government departments and the intelligence agencies, who reviewed all their cases and concluded that of the men still held, 86 of them should be released. 86 of them were not wanted to be tried or held indefinitely by the United States. And yet, these men are still held indefinitely by the United States. They will be held indefinitely until they die, like Adnan Latif, unless we can find some way of putting pressure on the administration to do what President Obama promised to do 4 years ago. You know, the difference between the United States and think of a brutal dictatorship. The difference between the United States and a brutal dictatorship is that when a brutal dictatorship puts somebody in prison and throws away the key and says, you're not having a trial, you're going to be held without charge or trial for the whole of your life, you're going to be detained indefinitely. They just throw away the key. What they don't do is say, hey, we've got a review process. We cleared you for release, but hey, guess what? We're not actually going to release you. That makes the United States worse than the brutal dictatorships who don't pretend that there is any form of justice. So please, this is a shame to me as a human being. It needs to be a shame to all of us as a human being that cleared prisoners are being held years after they were cleared for release. Maybe everybody here doesn't know it. Some of those men were first cleared for release by military review boards under the Bush administration. Some of them as long ago as 2004. Some of them in 2006, some of them in 2007. So between 3 and 8 years, these people have been cleared for release and are still held. Please, let's do all we can to bring this horrible, horrible injustice to an end. And tell this man that this is not about how likable he is, this is not about what party he belongs to. This is the fact that he is the President of the United States, and he owns the responsibility for this prison and the lives of the men still held there. Thank you very much.